Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder three. Strange things that happen here. How stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?
And welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. Tonight, we're going to be talking about haunted forests once more. If you're going out to forage for some food, why give your hard-earned money to some company owned by folks you've never seen, met, talked to? You don't know where these people are. Support your local businesses. We like getting our hamburgers from Pat's Kitchen, 5517 McPherson, across from the Boys Club. Best food in town. If you're not in Laredo, go find some local business and support them. They need your money far more than these ginormous corporations that all they care about is the bottom line. Stop giving all your money to some clown. Pat's Kitchen, the best food in town. I said I was going to do more on haunted forests last week. I had a list of weird places from all over the world, and I still had several to talk about. Then I watched Ancient Aliens and Unidentified and The Unexplained. These got me to thinking about UFOs and flying saucers. I thought about doing a UFO show. Then I got to thinking, there really isn't much new going on out there. I've heard all the hype from people about how the Air Force and the Navy have come up with new UFO reporting policies. Oh, wow. Do people actually think the military will send us copies of these reports? Anything earth-shattering is going to be classified, and we'll only hear about it from someone willing to risk their careers to talk. As for those UFO videos on TV, everybody's talking about them, so what can I add to this story? I'll do some digging and see if there's anything new to talk about, maybe in a few weeks. So, it's back to the haunted forests. Germany has some really scary locations. There's a werewolf who's been seen running around the Wittlich area of Germany since the early 1810s. This particularly nasty werewolf is known as the Moorbach Monster. It's been seen in the forest as well as the nearby town. The legend of the Moorbach Monster begins with a soldier named Thomas Johannes Baptist Schweitzer. He had a somewhat unique military career. He served in Napoleon's Grand Army during the commander's failed attempt to conquer Russia. Napoleon had soldiers from all over Europe under his command. If you like to fight, you follow whoever is starting a war. Schweitzer was there when Russians abandoned Moscow. They set fire to the city, ultimately destroying 3/4 of it. This gave the French army no place to hide. Due to the lack of sanitary accommodations, the army was a breeding ground for disease. More men died from sickness than from fighting. A typhus, which you get from lice, was rampant among the troops, and this led to the failure of the biggest army on earth. Napoleon's army was effectively ruined by lice. Sensing defeat and fearing for his life, Schweitzer deserted Napoleon's doomed army and he made his way back home to Alsace. Schweitzer fell in with a group of Russian deserters who joined him on his journey back to France. Soldiers didn't hate each other. They might wind up on the same side depending on how things went in their home countries. Look at how the United States and Britain get along. You'd never think at one time we were dead set on killing each other. How about us in Japan? So, with no higher-ups around, it wasn't that much of a deal to form up together. Also, it was considered quite the thing for most folks to speak French. All the royalty in Russia spoke French. Many didn't even speak Russian. Russian officers all spoke some French, as well as many of the troops. Roughly 160 miles of Alsace, the group came upon a rural German village of Wittlich. Desperately in need of supplies, the men raided a farmhouse, and in the process they murdered the family. The legend says as the family was being killed, the farmer's wife placed the following curse on Schweitzer. "From now on, at each full moon, you will change into a rabid wolf," she cried. Why she only cursed Schweitzer and not the Russians is anyone's guess. Schweitzer killed the woman by, hitting her in the head with his rifle. The legend says it was too late. The curse had been set, and his future was now in the hands of powers beyond our understanding. Schweitzer began to change. The extent of his depravity became harsher and crueler. He became more of an animal than a man. Some say it was all the horror Schweitzer had seen during battle. Some say he was just that kind of a person. He began to embrace his new inner animal. Schweitzer embraced the brutality of robbing, raping, and murdering. His appetite for debauchery and bloodlust was too much for his fellow deserters. When they had a chance, they left him to continue on by himself. After roaming the countryside by himself for a while, Schweitzer ran into a band of highwaymen. It didn't take long for them to decide this guy was just way too much. The idea was to rob folks traveling on the highway, take all their valuables, and then leave. Schweitzer wasn't content to rob people. He would then kill everyone. His new companions soon left him as well. There was no law to report things to. Once you'd been robbed, you had nobody to turn to. The military was responsible for enforcing the law, but most of them had been marched off to Russia. Germany and France were allies at the time. So, Schweitzer's crimes went unpunished. Stories began to spread. The people would tell about a half-man, half-wolf that was attacking travelers in the woods. The full moon, causing a person to turn into a wolf, is mostly Hollywood. In Europe, there were many ways to become a wolf. One was to use a magic belt made out of human skin. Another was to use a salve that you smeared all over your body. As for getting bit by a wolf and then turning into one, once more that was Hollywood. Schweitzer didn't spend all of his time in the woods. Once he had some cash in his pockets, he would head into the nearest town and enjoy a night at the expense of his last victims. On one of his visits, he encountered Elizabeth Burrell. Schweitzer decided he had to have her, even though she wanted nothing to do with him. Being in the habit of simply taking what he wanted, Schweitzer attacked Elizabeth. Well, Elizabeth was well-liked in town, and she had a lot of friends. The villagers decided it was time to do something about their local highwaymen. Days later, as Schweitzer sat at his campfire, a group of villagers confronted him and demanded he pay for his crimes. A popular way of punishing highwaymen was to place them in a gibbet. The accused was placed inside an iron cage just big enough for his body. This was then hung on a crossbar, usually at the crossroads, so that anyone traveling would see the person. The accused was then left to think about his crimes. Nobody would bother to come by and feed him, so only if some kind traveler stopped and handed him some food did the highwayman eat. The sentence was usually for life. It was common to see skeletons inside iron cages on the sides of roads back then. If the highwayman was lucky, the enraged mob would simply hang him. Well, Schweitzer didn't want anything to do with this sort of nonsense, so he took off running. The posse gave chase. They managed to run him to ground near the village of Moorbach. No one knows for sure if the posse shot Schweitzer or hung him. One way or the other, he was killed for his crimes. Then the villagers got nervous. The stories of the half-man, half-wolf was discussed. Could you kill a werewolf by simply shooting him? The idea of a silver bullet didn't come into play until the Beast of Javadon, which was how that beast was killed. This is my favorite story told by Ken Gerhardt. He went to France and he looked into the beast. In 1767, a werewolf was shot using a silver bullet. Before this, you could use any old bullet, but most folks didn't know this. In his book, A Menagerie of Mysterious Beasts, Encounters with Cryptid Creatures, Ken tells the story of this werewolf in France, and you can get a copy from Amazon.com. I have my copy, and I've read it twice. Back to Schweitzer. Oh yes, I've also had Ken on the show. Twice, but only once. If you listen to the show regularly, you'll know that his first appearance on the show, well, it didn't go out. Unfortunately, the recorder didn't record his voice, and so I had nothing to play that night. Well, back to Schweitzer. The villagers killed him, but now they were afraid that he might come back from the dead. To prevent the return of the werewolf, a shrine with a candle was placed at the gravesite. Legend says as long as the candle is kept burning, the creature shall be bound to the grave. 9 months after Schweitzer's death, Burrell gave birth to a son. To her relief, the child showed no signs of the curse, and his descendants are said to still live in the area. Modern times, 1988, a group of Air Force personnel were returning to the Moorbach U.S. Air Force munitions depot, and they walked past the shrine. The men noticed the candle had gone out. Having lived in the area and heard the stories the entire time they were there, they kind of mocked the superstitious locals, and they joked that now the candle was no longer burning, the werewolf was going to be running through the woods. Later that evening, all the base sirens began to go off. Someone or something had activated the perimeter sensors. One of the guards investigating the intrusion reported seeing a large wolf-like creature standing on its hind legs. The guard said it held his gaze for a moment before running off and effortlessly leaping over a 10-foot-high fence. Figuring the guard had been mistaken, the base personnel attempted to track the creature using dogs. Instead of chasing down the intruder, the dogs refused to follow the scent. Trained guard dogs are supposed to be fearless. This, combined with the stories from the locals, got the troop to thinking, what if? Strange things had been happening. Just think, if there really was a werewolf, could the men handle it? Would their guns be enough to save them from a beast from the unknown? Being inside the base perimeter with lights and buildings around was one thing, but to go wandering around out there in the dark woods, looking for God only knew what, was another. Instead of laughing at the locals, one of the men went to the shrine and lit the candle. This whole incident was not to be discussed. From that day on, any time any of the Air Force personnel noticed that the candle had gone out, they would quietly slip over there and reignite it. Even though England is a bit small, you could put it inside Texas 5 times. They do have some haunted forests. It's really hard for me to imagine that there is a country that is 5 times smaller than the state that I live in, but, well, Texas is huge. Deering Woods, also known as the Screaming Woods, lays between the villages of Smarden and Plucky. The woods earned this bizarre title after many folks either driving by or who lived near them heard and saw strange things. There were many reports of people hearing screams coming from the woods at night. They also heard footsteps and whispers during the early morning hours when the woods were still filled with fog. It is said that the woods are haunted by the ghosts of people who get lost in them. One particular story tells about an 18th century army colonel. For unknown reasons, he was tied to a tree and his head was cut off. He upset somebody, but no one knows who or why. His body was found, but no one was ever convicted for the crime. Many from the nearby village say they have seen black shadows that follow them while they're traveling near the woods. They also say they have seen weird lights moving around the woods at night. These lights drift back and forth, moving in a manner no person could possibly be responsible for. November 1st, 1948. 20 people from Maltman's Hill, which is just south of the forest, were found dead in the woods. 11 of these victims were children. All the bodies looked as if they had died at the same time. Who or what had killed these people has never been resolved. How did someone, or several someones, manage to get 20 people from this village, all to follow them into the woods, and then stay there while they're being killed? Many witnesses reported seeing strange lights coming from the woods on Halloween night, just before the massacre had taken place. Autopsies could not determine the cause of death of these 20, and after a few weeks the local authorities ended their investigation, claiming that the cause of death was carbon monoxide poisoning. Ah, yes, this happens all the time in the woods, out there in the fresh air. Where they managed to get the carbon monoxide, nobody wanted to say, but that was their official report. This raised a lot of questions of whether the police may have been involved in the case as well. A lot of people started thinking, ooh, the cops did it. In 1964, Robert Collins, a private investigator, began conducting in-depth witness interviews trying to uncover possible links with the activity, trying to find out what had happened between Smarden. His research came to an abrupt halt when he died in a car accident. How convenient. The only person looking into the case dies suddenly. And after that, nobody wanted to risk their lives looking into this unknown activity. The same night, 50 years later, 1998, 4 college students went missing from the woods. Witnesses came forward to say they had all seen strange lights in the sky. These 4 college students were never found, and the investigation into their whereabouts stopped after 3 weeks. No bodies or evidence ever came to light as to what might have happened. A Canuck Chase is a large location noted for its outstanding beauty and ancient history. It's also said to be one of the most paranormally active areas in the UK. Oh, come on. I've read so many accounts of this, that, or the other place being the most haunted. They can't all be the most haunted. It doesn't work like that. We need a committee to sit down and look into all of these paranormal sites and come up with a list going from highest to not even slightly haunted. There has to be one place that qualifies as being so haunted even a skeptic will run and hide. The rest cannot all come in second place. There will be no participation trophies. You have the most haunted, the haunted a lot, the haunted, the not so haunted, the not even bad smells. That should make life interesting, as all of the most haunted places on Earth vie for the #1 title. Well, on second thought, you know what a committee is, right? It's the last resting place of a good idea. Instead of a committee, just send me the names and how haunted they are, and I'll assign a rating, like the star system. 5 stars if the place is really haunted, 1 star if you can take your grandmother there and not worry about a heart attack. Well, unless your grandmother is into the paranormal, then take her to a 5-star haunted location. Not just ghosts have been seen in the Canuck Chase. Both strange... Sorry about that. If you're from Canada and listening, I didn't mean to say that. The Canuck Chase, actually I did. Both strange lights and unusual shaped aircraft have been witnessed within this area as well. In addition, there have been thousands of observations over the years of a large black cat, frequently described as being panther-like, that stalks the Canuck Chase woods. This huge black cat has also been seen in the surrounding countryside. They call these ABCs, abnormally big cats, and they're haunting all of England. One of the many entities is a demonic dog that is believed to haunt the area as well. Witnessed by numerous people, the description seems to be about the same. Huge, muscular, with abnormally pointed ears, almost like horns, and glowing red eyes. This terrifying spectacle is often seen at night. Another strange creature has been observed at night, but also during the day, is an entity described as being a werewolf. When eyewitnesses who first came across this creature thought it was an unusually large dog. On closer inspection, and from some reason unknown to the witnesses, they became feeling very uneasy. When the creature became aware of them, it reared up on its hind legs and ran into the woods. Not on all fours, but on its hind legs. This creature has been witnessed by many credible people, many of whom will not give their names publicly for fear of ridicule. They are very adamant about saying that what they saw was not some big dog. It walked on 2 legs. It was either a werewolf or a dog man. Another strange occurrence is a ghost-like figure known as the Lady of the Chase. This female apparition has been seen on numerous occasions around Canuck Chase woods and the surrounding area. This specter does not seem to be an ordinary woman. Witnesses describe her as being tall and slender and having a more than not female shape. However, she doesn't seem to have any female parts. The eyes are described as being extremely large and dark and kind of hypnotic. There are also reports of black-eyed children believed by some to be the murder victims of a man named Raymond Leslie Morris, who had plied his trade in the 1960s in and around these woods. Some folks have also reported seeing the Slender Man. Epping Forest, also said to be the most haunted forest in England. The forest is thought to have been given a legal status by as a royal forest by Henry II in the 12th century. This status allowed commoners to use the forest to gather wood and stuff and to graze their livestock, but only the king was allowed to hunt. Epping Forest is an area of ancient woodland in England. It is a former royal forest and is managed by the City of London Corporation Epping Forest. The size and density of the Epping Forest has made it a popular hideout for criminals and an infamous burial spot for their bodies. Notorious highwayman Dick Turpin hid there in the early 1700s. More than a dozen murder victims have been discovered in the woods since the 1960s. It's no surprise that the forest has developed a reputation for spooky sounds and ghostly apparitions. Some people also claim that if you drive to the Hangman's Hill and park your vehicle in neutral, your car will slowly move uphill. Sounds like the ghost children of San Antonio. A number of accounts have reported muffled sounds of drums and marching men coming from the forest. People believe that this is caused by the spirits of dead soldiers. Several reports have been made over the years of spirits apparently taking material form. In the 1960s, there were sightings of ghostly figures emerging from a pond near Lindsay Street in Epping. The figure was said to emerge from the pond on horseback before riding towards town and disappearing. In another pond at an unknown location deep in the woods, it is said to draw people there to commit suicide. 2 young lovers died in a tragic murder-suicide at the pond many centuries ago, and today their spirits are supposed to be drawing people to the same location to end their lives. Even if you don't believe in the myths, just the appearance of the woods is likely to send a chill up your spine. The trees have not been cut since the late 1800s, giving them a very overgrown and a bulbous look that you won't find anywhere else. England has had so much violent history, it's no wonder the place is overrun with ghosts. Can we say the most haunted country in the world? Nope, not going to say it. I'm going to take a brief pause here to not pay any bills, but to just tell you about the people that I support. Pat's Kitchen, of course, 5517 McPherson, is the best hamburgers in Laredo, if not the entire country. The Organic Man Coffee Trike, 4501 McPherson. It's the best coffee in town. If you're not drinking Organic Man coffee, you're not drinking real coffee. If you can't see what you're looking at, you should get your eyes checked. Swing on by Optica del Norte, 107 Calle del Norte. Get your eyes fixed so when you go Bigfoot hunting, you'll know that that's actually just a giant squirrel. If your skin looks like you've been plying it with cement and other forms of building materials, you really ought to call my wife and ask her about a free skincare class. Call Lourdes James at 956-723-3019 and see about getting your skin healthy again. If you hear strange sounds in your house at night, and you know that it's not your pet monkey running around, contact the LPRS and have them come by and do a ghost investigation. You can contact the Laredo Paranormal Research Society at laredoparanormal@hotmail.com. Find out if that banging noise is a rusty pipe or something hiding in your house. It seems so strange to do my commercials live instead of just pushing a button and playing them, but I still haven't gotten that soundboard to work. And like I said, I tried to pick up a new soundboard, but the operating system I have on this Apple computer doesn't support any of the new soundboards. I have an Apple computer for doing the show, and then I have a what the heck is this thing? A Hewlett Packard Envoy that I do all of my research on. So I've got one of each. I kind of like the Windows better. Oops. Anyway, in Waco, Texas, with its gnarled trees, occasional mist, smells of decay, and reputation for nocturnal mischief, Cameron Park is a naturally eerie location, especially at night. There are many stories passed down from generation to generation about the centuries-old parkland. The forest is 416 acres. The folks who have seen things say you can't enter the woods without seeing or hearing something paranormal. Next time I'm in Waco, I'll have to go look for myself. How many stars should the place get? I'll decide once I get there. One of the oldest Cameron Park legends on file at the Texas Collection in Carroll Library tells about Lindsay Hollow Road. The story goes that shortly after the Civil War, local ranchers captured two cattle thieves, the Lindsay brothers, chased them through what is now known as the Lindsay Hollow. Both brothers were executed by the vigilantes who, frightened of the consequences that may follow if the town folks were to find out about the execution, buried the outlaws on the site. What is unsure is how they died, but the unsettled spirits of these two cow wrestlers are said to haunt the area. Horse thieves were hung at one time. Cattle thieves, maybe, maybe not. It just depended on who caught them. Another hot spot for otherworldly activity in Cameron Park is the Witch's Castle. This is a decrepit remains of a stone archway and what used to be an old house. The area is said to reek of decaying flesh. People hear screams, gasps, and banging noises coming from inside this decrepit building. They also smell horrible smells. There are several versions of the witch at the heart of this story. In some stories, she is merely a reclusive old woman who tended to rely on home remedies or natural potions for curing illness. She probably had 2 or 3 dozen cats as well. What at one time was known as wisecraft later became known as witchcraft. In another story, she's a half-Indian mother, Feather, not Dot, who lost her only son during World War I, and her grief slowly drove her insane. Park visitors claim to hear mad chanting and screaming in the area of the ruins of the old stone structure. The darkest version of the story casts the witch as a Satan worshiper who sacrificed her own children to the devil before joining them in the down-under place. Her spirit is said to roam the woods, looking for more souls to steal. There's a limestone rock formation which is called Lover's Leap, which overlooks the Bosque River and is the stage upon which one of the great melodramas of Waco's history is supposed to have taken place. The story goes that 2 young American Indians, Feather, not Dot, from warring tribes, somehow managed to fall in love. Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. One tribe or the other chased one of them into the woods, while the other member of the pair went along with the pursued person. After running as far as they could, they found themselves cornered on top of this limestone cliff. Rather than living without each other, they embraced and jumped to their deaths. Legend has it the pair can be seen on the cliff when the Bosque River is running above its banks, and their romantic murmurs can be heard in the rushing water below. There's the motorcycle tar pit trail, which goes downhill from the Lover's Leap and is a popular area for jumping motorcycles back in the 1970s. The ghost story is that a young man was killed riding his chopper at the pits. I very seriously doubt he was on a chopper. That long, thin set of forks was not meant for jumping anything. He was probably on a regular dirt bike. Well, his bereaved mother came every day to the site to mourn her son's death. Even after her own death, decades later, she is said to continue to visit the site. People see her, and they hear her, and then she vanishes. People report hearing racing engines and a woman weeping. Some also say they see orbs moving through the trees near this cursed spot. A Jacob's Ladder is one of the park's greatest attractions. It's an extremely steep set of steps that climb nearly 100 feet to the top of a bluff. Built more than a century ago by a family that lived on top of the bluff, the aged structure is still usable today. The ghostly activity dates back to the 1980s. According to the stories, if a couple climbs the ladder after dark, they will feel invisible hands pulling at their clothes. The woman is usually the first to feel these grabbing ghost hands, followed by the man. The stairs are steep and long, so don't go if you're not in good shape. There is the Huntsville State Park, which is supposed to be haunted. My wife and I stayed there during the first South Texas Bigfoot Conference in Huntsville. People say they've seen a phantom alligator in the park. Well, there are real live alligators in the park, so why not a phantom gator as well? People also have seen glowing red eye amongst the trees. Now, alligators' eyes do shine if you point a light at them, but these eyes are seen even when nobody points a light at them. People have heard footsteps moving about in the woods in the dark. It gets so dark you really need a flashlight if you're going to move about, but these footsteps are not accompanied by any light source. It sounds as if somebody is running through the woods who can see in the dark. The Big Thicket National Preserve, people have reported running into a seemingly sweet old lady who will ask them for directions. She's dressed the same each time. Everyone who has seen her describes her in the exact same outfit. Her eyes look hollow and far away, as if she's not thinking about where she's at or who she's talking to. People will see her walking along the trails, and she will sometimes pass right through the trunks of some of the bigger trees. Just before you encounter her, you will smell lavender. Once you smell it, she should appear shortly. No one has ever managed to get a photograph of this woman, but a lot of people have seen her. The Sabine National Forest is said to be a paranormal hotspot. There is supposed to have been the ghost of a pyromaniac who died there several years ago when he put a lot of gasoline into his campfire. And I mean a lot of gasoline. People have reported being awoke in the middle of the night to the strong smell of gasoline and smoke. One visitor advised of a creepy shadow man who was lurking near the cabins. There's the Devil's Tramping Ground, which is a mysterious, perfectly round and absolutely barren circle about 40 feet in diameter in the pine woods of Chatham County, North Carolina. Not a tree, not a flower, not even a weed grows inside the circle. People have gone so far as to take seeds and planted them in the circle. Nothing ever comes up. The street that leads to the circle is named Devil's Tramping Ground Road. There's a street sign sometimes. People have been known to steal the street signs, though. Things left inside the circle by visitors or researchers will be thrown from the circle by some unseen force. North Carolina State Road 1100 to Devil's Tramping Ground at Harper's Crossroad. That's the magic location. Dogs tuck their tails between their legs and whimper whenever they're brought near the circle. The frightened animals will dig in their heels and try to get away from the circle, no matter what. No matter how well behaved the animal is, they refuse to go near that circle. Some people have tried to spend the night inside the circle, but nobody has succeeded and remained sane. Something they see on their vigils drives them out of their wits. The Devil's Tramping Ground has earned its name. It's said that this is where the devil himself walks at night. In his tramping grounds, the devil spends his nights pacing around and around in a circle and turning his bitter mind towards ways to bring human souls to damnation. It's the scorching heat of his hooves that kill the vegetation has rendered the soil barren. He will angrily brush aside anything left in his path. His great strength easily able to toss aside even the biggest, heaviest objects. When he walks in his private spot on earth, the devil drops the illusions with which he disguises himself when he appears to men. In his natural state, the face of this fallen angel is so horrible that no man can see it and remain sane. The mystery of the Devil's Tramping Ground has been known since Chatham County was founded shortly before 1776 War of Independence. From generation to generation, the story has been passed down, and despite efforts by scientists to explain this barren patch of land, no satisfactory explanation has ever come up. If you're driving on State Road 1100 in Chatham County at night, and you pass a curve in the road where there's a narrow path leading off into the woods, you might catch a glimpse of something moving in the trees. If you see a shadowy figure moving between the trees, it's best to hit the gas and get away from there fast. The Devil's Tramping Ground is located about 10 miles south of Silver City on State Road 1100 and Devil's Tramping Ground Road. Take US 64 south from Silver City, and then take West Raleigh Road south. This turns into Silver City Glendon Road. Stay on this for about 10 miles until you reach Harper's Crossroad at the intersection of Silver City and Glendon Road and State Highway 902. Devil's Tramping Ground Road is right there. The road sign for Devil's Tramping Ground may be missing as it is frequently stolen. It is the first road to your left if you're heading south. Go about a mile down Devil's Tramping Ground Road until you see a pull-off to your right. There's a well-worn path that will take you to the clearing, which is about 20 feet into the woods. If you do go there and see something, let me know. I am not going there myself. There are some things I won't do. Ouija boards, seances, exorcisms. Like Dirty Harry said, a man has to know his limitations. India has many haunted stories which just about make your blood run cold. Most of these stories have one particular spot that happens to be the core of all paranormal activity. A haunted road or a castle. A spot where the ghost hangs out. The ghosts and spirits all stay close to one spot. But then there's the hill station of Krusong. This is a kind of like a park or a national forest. Folks go there to commune with nature. There are some things going on in the woods that make this place more like a ghost town with real ghosts. Kursong is located in West Bengal, named the Land of the Orchids. Kursong has a dark side to it. It is believed to be one of the most haunted places in India. Here we go again, the most haunted place. There's a small stretch of road in between the Dow Hill Road and the Forest Office, which is called the Death Road. Woodcutters here often report a blood-chilling account of a young boy walking on the road and disappearing into the woods. What makes him so scary is he has no head. This boy looks like the murder victim out looking for his missing head. Back during the Reign of Terror, when France was doing away with the royals, there were a lot of heads chopped off. The guillotine was getting a real workout. Once the head was removed, great care was taken to be sure the head and the body wound up in the same grave. The idea was if the two were separated, the body would come back from the grave and search the countryside looking for the head. This is what led to the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow. The forest in India seems to hound people who have gone there. Inside, people get the feeling of being watched and followed by someone. People have also spotted one red eye, just one, staring at them for a moment, and a woman with gray clothes is seen wandering around. Some people have been to Kursong Forest have gone mad because of some bizarre effect of being exposed to the spirits. Either they can't handle the things they saw, or the spirits are scrambling their brains. Why is anyone's guess. People have committed suicide in these woods. Those who knew them say they didn't show any signs of wanting to end their life. They went to see the woods. Then something came over them. Their suicide was unexplained and unexpected. There's a haunted school located near the woods. The school was closed after a string of unexplained deaths among the students. It's not known if these were murders, accidents, or suicides, but the school was closed to prevent any more casualties. Those who venture into the school have heard voices coming from empty classrooms. They hear footsteps in the hallways. Most of the ghostly activity takes place from December to March. Paranormal investigators think the school was affected by its proximity to the haunted forest. My puppy, M, keeps jumping up against my chair, making it creak. She's a glutton for attention. I have a lot of friends who visited India, and none of them were there looking for paranormal activity. If you live in India, or you've been there and you've seen these weird woods, let me know. I might do another show on the place. This huge piece of land was once called Rancho Los Feliz, which was owned by the Feliz family. Felanese family. Don Antonio Felanese lived on a ranch he named Rancho Felanese, along with his sister Soledad and her 17-year-old blind daughter Donna. In 1863, the Don contracted smallpox, which led to his death. On his deathbed, he was visited by Don Antonio Cornell and his lawyer. The first Don Antonio was not all there. He was in and out of consciousness, and it's probable his visitors knew it. They had come for nefarious reasons. The visitors drew up a new will, and while Don Antonio was semi-conscious, they had him sign it. Once the landowner was dead, the lawyer produced the new will showing the entire ranch was now the property of Don Antonio Colonel. The former ranch owner's sister and niece were left without a penny. Infuriated with receiving nothing, Felanese's niece Donna put a curse down on the put a curse down on Coronel, the lawyer, and anyone else who was involved. She even cursed the land itself. Then she killed herself, and the Griffith Park curse was born. Soon after Donna died, Coronel was shot dead by some unknown assailant. Following his death, his family all contracted diseases and bizarre runs of misfortune. The judge who had presided over the reading of the will met with a sudden and unexpected death. Coronel's young wife, who did not die, remarried a man named C.V. Howard. Things didn't work out, and the couple were soon divorced, splitting the land between them. Howard sold his part for a hefty profit, and while out celebrating his newfound fortune, he was shot dead as well. The land then passed over to Leon Lucky Baldwin, who set up a ranch and a dairy farm. Leon soon became known as Bad Luck Baldwin. His cattle all died from disease, and grasshoppers ate all of his crops. Fires destroyed whatever was left. He became bankrupt and had to sell the land to pay his debts. Baldwin's bad luck soon came to an end when he was shot dead as well. Thomas Bell was the next landowner, a financier from San Francisco, but he didn't own the land long enough for the curse to take effect. He sold the land shortly after its purchase to a man named Griffith. Griffith allowed Frank Burkett to open an ostrich farm on the land. The curse struck with a vengeance. Huge lightning bolts came from the sky, striking many of the oak trees. The ranch workers claimed that during the storm they saw the ghost of Don Felanese riding about in the rain. Once the spirit of the Don made its appearance, he never left Griffith Ranch. It continued to haunt the land, mostly in the area near Bear Bee Rock. Griffith was too scared. Now Em is barking at the truck outside. Having heard about the curse, Griffith was too scared of the spirits, so he never went to his own land. He had other people handle anything that required a visit. Trying to get rid of the ghost, Griffith donated 3 acres of land to the city of Los Angeles in 1896. His plan didn't seem to work out for him, and the curse slowly ate away, and his health decreased until he died. Oh, correction, no, he didn't die, but his health was seriously affected. He was convinced that his wife, who was Catholic, and the Pope wanted to steal his fortune, and they were plotting to poison him. At mealtime, he would swap his wife's plate with his own. His paranoia finally got the better of him, and he shot his wife while they were staying at the Arcadia Hotel in Santa Monica. San Masino, I don't even think there is such a place. Santa Monica. His wife survived the attack, and Griffith was sentenced to 2 years for attempted murder. He spent his prison time in San Quentin. Once he was released, nobody wanted anything to do with Griffith, and all his efforts to adding to the park were stopped. He did manage to set up a trust fund to have the observatory and the Greek theater built after his death in 1919. 22-year-old Rand Garrett, an up-and-coming musician, and his 20-year-old girlfriend, Nancy Jensen, who was an actress, or trying to become an actress, were having a romantic afternoon on the park table when out of nowhere a tree fell onto them, crushing them both to death. Since the tragic death of Rand and Nancy, there have been some weird, creepy happenings going on around the place where the picnic table and the tree that killed them used to be. After the accident, one of the park rangers was given the task of removing the fallen tree and cleaning up the area. As the ranger started to do his assigned task, he was overcome by the weirdest feeling. He felt a chill come over him, followed by nausea and fever. As he did his best to continue chopping the tree into smaller pieces, the tree started to shake violently. This was followed by cries and screams from all around him. He heard whispers in his ears and someone telling him, "Leave us alone." The ranger decided it was time to leave. When you hear a disembodied voice telling you to go, you go. He jumped in his truck to do as he'd been told, but the engine wouldn't start. The park ranger had to keep trying the ignition until the engine finally turned over. You all know about spirits and how they will drain batteries. The tree remained where it had landed for about a month. Dennis Higgins, the park supervisor, went to remove the tree and fix up the table himself. He was found the next morning by the tree, dead. The chainsaw of the blade had somehow been bent into a U shape. The authorities claimed that Higgins died from a heart attack. What they couldn't explain was why his hair had turned white, and his facial expression was that of someone petrified in fear. To make matters even stranger, the body was found a short distance from where he had died. It looked as if someone or something had drug it by the ankles away from the tree. The fingernails were filled with dirt, and there were marks on the dirt from his fingers. Folks who choose to visit the area where the tree used to be say as they draw near the spot, they will hear somebody telling them to leave. Over the years, people have been murdered in the park. Some have committed suicide in out-of-the-way locations. Their bodies may be found years later. There have been bizarre accidents where people have lost their lives. Griffith Park has had its fair share of deaths. Some of these bodies are not found until nothing remains but the bones. The people out walking the trails will stumble across a skull or a long bone later identified as being human. Many of these bodies are never identified. A couple using one of the park's many trails stumbled across a human skull laying in the bushes. The skull was that of a young woman in her 20s. The authorities believe it was there in the park for about 10 years. None of the other body parts were ever found. Aha! Dave said that I should go ahead and answer this. So, go ahead, you're on the air with Strange Things. Hello? Well, that didn't work out the way I expected. Somebody wanting to talk to my wife. Maybe she wants a skincare class. Well, Dave said next time somebody called that I should answer the phone on the air, so, well, there you go. It didn't work out the way I expected. Back in 2012, another pair of hikers stumbled across a severed head that was laying under the Hollywood sign. The police soon found more body parts, a hand, a foot buried in a shallow grave. The other hand was found several days later, but no other body parts have yet been discovered. Another dead body of a male was found in the park. This time his body was intact, and it is thought that he may have committed suicide, but they're not all that certain. The list just goes on of these gruesome findings, and with the park's vast trails, rocks, and caves, no doubt there are other lost souls buried within these creepy grounds. The ghost of Don Antonio was seen during a high society party being held in the park. The ghost rode a horse, jumped up onto a table, then leapt from the table and began chasing the partygoers. The attendees all ran for their lives. The Don spirit has been seen riding his horse through the park. The witnesses have heard the spirit laughing as he stands on top of the rocks looking down at them. The ghost of Donna is also seen roaming the park wearing a flowing white dress. The park staff have seen her inside the headquarters building. She also likes to ride her horse around the park, but she is mainly seen taking him for a gallop right at midnight. There's a little girl ghost who is frequently seen frantically running around the park and asking people for help. People will see her as she runs through the trees. She vanishes before anyone can get a real good look at her. The rumors are she was the victim of some murderer from years ago. No one can find any record of this particular victim. She could be what we call a transient spirit. Maybe she died elsewhere and she found the park was the place to be. A spirit is reported to be seen on the merry-go-round. This same spirit has been seen walking up and down the steps of the nearby building. People all think he's a living person right up until he vanishes. How many times have people seen a person walking by or sitting somewhere that vanishes right after the sighting? If you don't keep an eye on things going on around you, you might miss your ghost sighting and never even know it. Elfin Forest is an unincorporated rural community in San Diego County, located in the foothills of Santa Rosa Mountains. The geography is southwest of Escondido, with a township of Harmony Grove to the northeast, San Marcos to the north, and Ovenhain to the southwest. Rancho Santa Fe is directly south. Just a short distance away was a hospital that many said was an insane asylum. This land was purchased by Flower and Lawrence Newhouse, who built the Quest Haven, a religious treat for all denominations. People say they've seen the spirits of those who used to be locked away in the asylum. Paranormal investigators are not allowed on the property. The stories come from folks driving by or those who are there on religious activities. Of course, these people all wish to remain anonymous. That doesn't change the fact a lot of these people have seen some strange spirits. Another common story is that gypsies used to live in the area of Spook Canyon, which is a part of the Elfin Forest. They used the area to practice the occult. There's a large community of palm readers, psychics, and mediums, all living and plying their trade on a 12-acre plot of land in the wooded area. This place is called the Harmony Grove Spiritualists. According to the local papers, the gypsies would perform rituals every Sunday morning in order to converse with the dead. They were trying to contact Indian children, Feather, not Dot, who had been killed in the area. On another occasion, they have tried to contact any murder victims who died nearby. The ghost of a lady in white has been seen haunting the area of Elfin Forest. People say they've seen the woman floating above the ground. She has no feet, only an empty space between her and the ground. Legend has it that the woman was left on the East Coast while her husband and son sought out land in San Diego. For some unknown reason, both men were killed. The ghost lady in white has been blamed for multiple car crashes along Quest Haven Road. Bill Barker, the former volunteer fire chief of Elfin Forest, said there have been 16 to 20 car crashes reported each year. Those involved all said the lady in white was to blame for the crash. So there you have it. Haunted forests from all over the place. Makes me want to go hiking. Maybe I shouldn't tell my wife about these weird places, as she's not as crazy about ghosts as I am. If you have a good ghost story or even a bad one, and it takes place anywhere in the southern part of Texas, or, for that matter, anywhere in the world, Send me the story and I'll put it in my next book if I don't use it on the show itself. You can send it to strangethings@arkanasa.com. Until next Saturday, this is Chris James for Strange Things.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder 3. Strange things that happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.